sagde jo lige før, at det var ikke nok at kigge... At det var ikke nok at kigge på levende dyr. Man var nødt til at kigge på døde dyr også. Synes du det? Og jeg sidder her med hovedet helt nede i. Jeg kan næsten ikke lukke noget. Det er lidt mærkeligt. Du vil spørge om noget før?
Animal lovers around the world are shocked and baffled by a Danish zoo's decision to put down one of its giraffes.
A healthy giraffe was killed, skinned and dismembered in front of children. His name was Marius.
He was shot dead yesterday by a veterinarian. Marius wasn't sick, he wasn't old. He was, in the zoo director's words, part of a surplus problem. But it's what happened next that really stoked a lot of this outrage. An autopsy was done in front of an audience that included children.
So what are they doing here? It confused. Maybe I can't figure it out after all these years working with animals.
Marius, the young giraffe at Copenhagen Zoo, had to go.
They didn't need to see a magnificent animal massacred.
Grotesque, abominable, insensitive. I could go on with the words, but let's let that alone right now.
The gruesome story went viral, forcing Copenhagen Zoo's authorities to defending their highly controversial anatomy lesson.
I don't quite understand the big outrage.
And what are you proud of? How brutal you can be to an innocent animal? The truth? These kids watching are going to suffer trauma and flashbacks for the rest of their lives.
I'm just wondering how many children left the zoo in tears, traumatized by what the adults had done to this beautiful animal.
None.
Every serial murderer I know of started out by torturing and killing animals. Let's hope the kids who witnessed the killing of an innocent giraffe in that Copenhagen Zoo stay in Denmark.
It's a lot of education in seeing the dissection of the giraffe, where the vet can tell about the big heart, etc.
But forgive me, the whole thing is cruel. I mean, the dismemberment of this animal and then seeing the lions feasting on it, I mean, clearly freaked out some of the children that were watching it.
No, and it's not cruel, it's natural. I mean, carnivores live from meat, and the meat comes from other animals.
You work with animals?
Yes.
Do you actually like them?
Yes, I do very much. And that's why I want to save them, and I want to make sure that we have a healthy population.
And doing what you had to do today was saving animals, was saving giraffes?
It is, because you save the population. It's just like a vaccination, actually.
Never cried so hard. #save Marius. I can't stop crying. This horrible.
Killed baby. #save Marius in front of children. Firebent. Has no biz working with animals.
Denmark is a country of giraffe haters. This has to stop. They can't do that with the animals and kill them when they want.
I would like to skin the buses of Copenhagen Zoo and feed them to lions.
Absolutely fucking disgusting. The same shit happened to Marius was young during day before the
It was a very, very complicated fracture, and I have no idea because I'm not a veterinarian, so I have no idea if it could have been fixed, but I'm pretty sure that if it could have been fixed, it would have been fixed, because it's a very, very rare tiger species. I'm pretty confident that it was euthanized because that was the only way out of this.
Så kommer den lige retur. 12,2 kilo. Det er 12 liter mælk. Den er faktisk ret tung.
We accept this tiger from Rendező Park because this is one of the zoos that's part of this family of zoos working seriously on animal protection and species protection. You will not receive anything from anybody. So if somebody just showed up and had, hey, I have a dead panda, it would be like, where's that panda from? I usually get emails or phone calls from these zoos, from my colleagues, telling me that we have this and this species and we are about to euthanize them, are you interested? And usually they will freeze animals down for me, and once or twice a year I would go around and collecting them. I did a lot of dissections, like hundreds of animals per year. But now I only have the public dissections, and I guess I have somewhere between 10 or 20 per year. We want to invite people to see what we are doing as a museum. So we have a lot of other activities too. It's not just the public dissections. That's actually just part of it. So we have all these series of activities showing people how do we work in a museum, how does science work.
Det er faktisk bakterier, der passer på dig. Så når du bliver syg, så er det faktisk også bakterier, der hjælper dig med at blive rask.
So this tiger has been measured, and we will keep the skeleton and the skin. So the skin will be tanned and the skeleton will be prepared into a disarticulated skeleton. So we'll have a skeleton puzzle. So it goes in the tiger library. We don't have that many tiger cubs. It's usually adults, so it's quite valuable for us. So the next time there is a cat scientist coming by, you can say, hey, we have this and this and this, and you can measure the bones and do all kinds of research on it.
Det var sådan lidt mærkeligt, når der bare blev skåret en tiger op. Og så var der også alle mulige ting, når man tog pelsen af, som jeg aldrig nogensinde har set på en tiger.
Vil du gerne være biolog?
Ja.
Hvorfor vil du gerne være det?
Nok fordi jeg bare er interesseret i alt, hvad naturen har med at gøre.
Var det underligt på en god måde, eller var det underligt på en dårlig måde?
Altså, det var også lidt... Det var mærkeligt på en sjov måde.
Var du sådan lidt nervøs, da du så på tigeren, der blev skåret op?
Nej, jeg ventede bare på at se, hvad det var. Og sådan det der om ved nakken, som den havde lige her. Det var lidt ulækkert, fordi der var bare alle mulige ting. Der var sådan nogle agtige bobler, noget, som var alle mulige lyserøde og blå farver. Og så var det også lidt mærkeligt, når man så på armen, fordi den var blå. Fordi armen den var brækket, så var den blå.
Synes du, det var lidt sundt for tigeren?
Nej, jeg vidste, det var fordi, at det var det bedste for den. Det var, den havde brækket i hvert fald lårbenet. Altså, som han også sagde, så synes jeg måske, det er fair nok at dræbe den, når den ikke kan løbe, og den ikke rigtig kan leve det liv, som den gerne vil have, den skulle have.
zoos are, in the public's heads, are supposed to deal with living animals, and zoological museums are dealing with dead animals.
I'm often asked if we will do it again, and we will, and we have done it again. I mean, it's now 3 years ago. In this case with Marius, the giraffe here in Copenhagen, his genes were already very well represented in the European population, so there was no space for him to go in other zoos here. No matter where we would put him, he would actually take up space for a genetically more valuable giraffe in the population, so he was actually not wanted in the population anymore. Then we could, of course, choose to say, okay, then we send it outside the program to another zoo somewhere in the world, but we don't want to send the giraffe just to any zoo, no matter what. We will only send it to a zoo where we can take responsibility for the conditions they have, so then we know they will manage this giraffe in the same good way as we do. For us, it's normal management procedures. And just as we every day feed our animals, we clean the enclosures and we put up enrichment devices. Then when it needs to be, then we also euthanize surplus animals, just as part of the management system we have. Every animal that dies in the zoo needs to go through an autopsy, no matter if we know the reason for the death or not. And this case was pretty obvious why he was dead. But we always get new knowledge every time we open an animal, because we can see, wow, this liver is a little bit bigger than it used to be. Why is that so, etc., etc. So we get a really good knowledge about these animals. And since we're going to make this autopsy anyway, and the giraffe was too big to just put into the autopsy room, which only is a normal room for smaller animals, so we had to do the autopsy out in front of the clinic, the veterinary clinic anyway. And since there's space enough around this area, we said to ourselves, why don't we invite our visitors to see this? Because an open autopsy is a really good education option, one of the best we have, because animals are not only exciting when we see them alive, but they're also exciting when we open them up.
Du holder fast i hovedet, ikke? Når man har ligget i en fryser siden 2005, så bliver man sådan, yes! Det er jo lidt som at måle på et gummibånd, vi kan godt strække og sætte det lidt sammen.
I've seen all sorts of reactions during these public dissections. I would lie if I said I haven't seen anybody cry. Most of them are actually having a good time and are just curious. So they're just standing with wide eyes and open ears and ask a lot of questions. And there are also some who find it, who get scared, but it's very, very rare that you have these, strong reactions. It's always the curiosity that takes over. for most of the people, it's very, very strange what's going on. Because, I mean, I've been doing it for the last 16 years, so it doesn't really affect me. So you have to like consider that there might actually be people getting affected by it. So no, no cynical jokes, no sarcastic comments. So what is important for us is that it's not a freak show. You can easily turn it into a freak show. I mean, you have the blood all over the place. You have, big bloody knives, and you are standing with the heart in your hands, blowing up the lungs, things like that. Public dissection and what you would call a scientific dissection, I really think it goes hand in hand. So we don't make up things for the public dissections, because what is interesting is the scientific dissection. That's what people want to participate in. I think we are in Denmark so detached from religious thoughts and feelings, and that's why we can do it. And that's also why I think it's very, very important to keep doing it, because doing dissections and doing autopsies on humans was, as I see it, what really, separated science and religion totally in the Renaissance. We are all so proud of the Renaissance, but people who were conducting the Renaissance, like Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo, they were actually not allowed to do the cutting in the humans that they did anyways, because humans were thought of as, God's perfect being. So you're not allowed to open it and see how God had created it. And they did it anyways, because they were curious and they wanted to know how the body worked and how it looked. That has brought us to here. And we need to we can't just say, okay, now we're here, everything is fine, let's leave it. So that's why I think you have to keep that wheel rolling.
When we're doing any sort of public dissection, the point is to explain all the common things, because for a lot of people it's a big mystery. How does the body work? It's just a black box for them. So we want to talk about the really common things, like how do we breathe? What do the lungs do? What does the heart do? Where are the muscles? What do they do? And so on. So that's very basic. And then specifically with the giraffe, I wanted to tell the story about the extreme length of the legs, the length of the neck, the size of the heart in relation to this. During this dissection, we wanted to collect scientific specimens, because this animal was also part of our research. While we were trying to explain to all the people who showed up what was going on, we also made sure that we actually collected all the scientific samples that we needed. It's a relatively big component of my job to take animal lives. It's not an enjoyable part of it. I attend many of the animal births here. And I also end up being the one around when animal lives are ended. Either because they're very old, or because they're sick, or for management reasons, as in this case. And this is not something that I enjoy doing, but it's something that becomes a professional task. So in this case, you just want to make sure that it's done as properly and quickly and as best as possible. On that day, I was very focused on trying to do this in the best possible way for the animal. We brought the animal out. The giraffe are used to being in the house in the morning, and then they're let out, typically one by one, and they go onto the savannah area. In this case, we let him out as the first animal, and he came out, and he sort of looked around and said, "Where are the other guys?" We offered him some bread, which he enjoyed as a snack, and then he was shot. Some people say, "Oh, you shouldn't have told us that because it sounds cruel to shoot an animal like that." But the point of saying that is that this animal had no idea what was coming, and he died instantaneously. That went exactly the way it should. The animal died when it should, and as it should, and the other animals didn't know what was going on, and he didn't have a clue of what was going on. So a lot of people are sort of not really making the discrimination between quality of life and quantity of life. And I think when it comes to animals, we need to focus on quality of life. And so if animals have a good life, it doesn't necessarily have to be a long life, but the quality has to be there.
Some people on the Becz side will say that there's no issue at all if they gave Marius a tidbit and shot him through the head, so no welfare problem, no, he didn't feel any pain. Probably he died instantaneously. So in a way you can say, what's the big issue? There was no suffering. I'll still say that if you kill a healthy animal, you take away its future life. If someone kills me right in the middle of this interview where I'm completely bogged up in an argument, happy, enjoying myself, talking about philosophy, then that would be a painless death. Then I still will be the problem that I will lose the future of my life. I still may have 20 good years to live in, and taking away 20 good years from me is sort of, well, even though I didn't think about them in a moment when I died, there's still years lost, these opportunities, and I still think it's the same with animals. I think this sort of basic idea that all sentient creatures in a way have some opportunities and there's something nice about them enjoying these opportunities. But I also have this utilitarian side of my thinking saying, okay, but sometimes there are tough choices to be made, because in the Marius case, either some other giraffe would have to go or some giraffes would have to live in less than perfect conditions. So there's a price to pay whatever you do, and I don't mind paying the price of killing, but unlike Becz, I think there is a price to pay. That you lose out something, but that losing out may be okay, because the alternative may be worse.
Undskyld, Krokodille.
Ja, han tager det.
Fordi jeg har forberedt mig til at hovedet er herovre.
Det er helt i orden.
Nå, så kan du bare slide det.
Lad os mere ud af det. Yes, sådan.
Det er lås.
I think that part of the reason that Danes generally have a fairly relaxed relationship about this is that we are a nation that almost everybody is still not many links away from a farmer or a fisherman or a hunter for that matter. So it's in our fairly recent memory.
Jeg vil gerne sige rigtig hjertelig velkommen til finalen Unge Forskere 2.
Almost all the schools, even kindergartens, might do a dissection of an animal. They might have a field trip to an abattoir. There might be a hunter among the parents who will bring in some animal for a dissection. And I think it's very much a part of the culture here and part of the educational system that this is a natural thing.
Den er ikke blevet aflevet til formålet.
In Denmark, it has for many years been a tradition that children actually go and see animals being taken apart, and they get an experience out of it. They actually sort of get a real feel for what it's like, even also the real smell. These children say, "Oh my God, that's smelly," but the smell, the rot, and everything is a sort of part of understanding what life and death is and what animals are.
Tak, kom. Sådan der. What a beauty.
And I think a lot of children have a fascination there, and that's actually sort of enriched their lives, and I never saw any evidence that sort of it harms them or makes them somehow brutalized. I think actually giving them a much more relaxed attitude.
My experience is that the kids coming into our public dissections actually are the ones who are the most curious. It's always the adults going, "Ooh, it smells," or "Ooh, it looks ugly." 9 out of 10 kids just come straight to the table, stares me in the eyes and it's like, "Can you show me the brains?" or "Can you show me the heart?" If you can explain what's going on, and if you can, just tell the truth, it just works out. But I mean, it just makes sense. There's so much that doesn't make sense, but when you're doing these dissections, it really makes sense. And I think I can see it in the eyes of the kids and the adults that it makes sense when you explain things to them.